I basically have a folder system. If they don't answer the first time, they go to call 2. The next day, I'll call all of call 2. And then if they don't answer call 2, I move them to call 3. On Vulcan7, they actually have that note field. I can do a timestamp, so then I type in any notes. Person is selling because of, XYZ. It's a paid system. So you can create as many templates as you want to for like different deals, whether you're the buyer or the seller. But I basically created like 5 different templates. So now I can create a folio timeline in about 2 minutes.
This is the Agent Goldmine, where you'll find real talk, and ambition. We're here to build real businesses and be more than your average agent. We want to know what killers are actually doing within their businesses, the reality of it, all tactical, no fluff. So we're here to find out. Please share and enjoy.
Always dancing. What's up, Chris?
Chris.
In the house. Chris, we're so excited that you're here with us today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on the show with you guys.
Dude, for sure. And normally we kick it off with how we know you, but it turns out you have a better story about how you know us.
I actually have kind of a crazy story, and I'm going to try my best, not to get emotional when I tell it, because it's kind of a roller coaster of emotion. But basically, I got into the business on August 1st of 2020. It was the peak of the pandemic. I never did real estate in the past. I have no knowledge of it previously. I actually I was a professional ballroom dancer for 10 years. And I did that. I was an instructor one-on-one. So I had the opportunity to kind of work with people and work on my communication skills. And there was sales involved in that, but never prospecting or anything like that. So that was a lot of fun. Did that for a while. I finished my degree at college, got my degree in business management. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I got into real estate because I was planning on being an investor and had all these plans. So I decided to just go ahead and go full force into it. So I got my first listing on day 5 of being licensed. It was a lot of just by happenstance. I was really building my sphere, and I came across a lady that was looking to sell an investment property. That was my first one. Okay, so I don't even have access to the MLS. I don't have access to pretty much anything at this point. I am brand new. So it turns out the mentor that I had ended up buying the home from me, and or buying the house because he was an investor. He didn't really show me a whole lot of the process. He just kind of did everything for me. And then at the end of the closing, he's just here's your check. Good job. And I was just well, wait a minute here. What the hell just happened? So that was how I got into real estate, and I kind of floated around for a little while. Then I hooked up with a couple of different teams, and things I thought were going really well. I was going to start this new team with this new guy, and we were going to just take over the world together. And as most of you have probably a similar story, that didn't work out that way. For a long time, he was floating me leads. And of course, the team leads were split 50-50. And then the leads that I had were also split. And it was very difficult to even make it. Well, eventually he brought somebody else onto the team, then somebody else. And then eventually that lead flow kind of shut off. And I started floundering, and I didn't really know what to do. I was never really taught how to prospect. I knew what I had to do, but I just wasn't doing it. Then last year, I decided to go full-time solo, just headfirst into real estate, full-time. And things started changing last summer. We had a baby on August 10th, and that was the best day and the worst day in a way of my life. I had 11 deals fall through between the months of August and October. All in a row. Wow. 11 deals in a row fell through for different reasons. Some of it was on me. I was just, my training was not there. And, for whatever reason, they just all fell through. Eventually, on August 10th, the day that my baby was born, I had 3 fall through that day, that morning. That was one of the most stressful days of my life. My wife was about to give birth to a baby, and she's in the delivery room crying her eyes out because I just lost some deals. And that isn't even what we should be thinking about right now. But we knew I had nothing else in the pipeline. I had nothing else. I didn't know what to do. And it was a very, very emotional time for us. Then there would be at times where I would come home and she would just be in the living room by herself, just crying her eyes out. She's a stay-at-home mom. We have no additional income. So if I'm not selling houses, that's a problem, So I finally, I was reaching out of desperation. I was able to connect to some people, And I was always good friends with, he had very similar goals as I did. And, we started talking, and I ended up getting on his team because he had a lot of similar goals, like-minded people. And that was like the one of the biggest takeaways for me is when joining this, getting into real estate at all is being able to find your people. You got to be able to surround yourself with people that are there to support you, that are going to elevate you to that skill level so you can succeed as an agent. And I wasn't doing that in the very beginning. And that was a huge lesson for me. So since then, things have been rocking and rolling, and things have completely turned around. I mean, I kind of burned the ships in a way. My back was against the wall, and I basically went all in. I was starting to dust off my resume and submitted it to a couple of different places. And thank God nobody called me back because I would have. And I always had like in the back of my mind, like, what if I, gave it my all and tried? Like, there was always something in real estate that attracted me. So I decided to just put my head down, and I'm just going to cold call. And it's one of the scariest things in the world, but I could not. What's worse, coming home to my wife who's crying her eyes out because I'm not pulling my weight, versus getting on the phone and having that possibility of maybe somebody being mean to me or something like that, And so I just swallowed my pride and just started calling. And it didn't take me long to realize that a lot of the fears that we have in our heads, we build that up in our minds, but nothing happens of it. Like most of the time, there's way more good things that come from it than bad. And that was the biggest takeaway. So I found out FSBOs are my niche market. That's my bread and butter. And just being able to have a conversation with somebody and, consistently is definitely the key.
We love your DMs on Instagram, and as long as you don't sound like a bot or aren't sharing your overnight crypto success, hit us up on Instagram. Let's be friends. We're at The Shelby Show and at Allie the Agent.
That's one hell of a story to start out with. We appreciate your vulnerability and sharing that. So I want to go into your stats before we dig into the rest of the podcast. So, because I actually feel like that doubles as your maybe show moment. Or what do you think?
I had a show moment like ago where I was touring. I was
okay. Well, first I want to go into your stats
first. Stats first. No, you're good.
Okay, so you are Chris Schultz. You are in the Florida Panhandle. That's where you mentioned Caleb Drake. He's also out in the Florida Panhandle. Check him out on another episode. We already recorded his, so his is already out. Your niche, you work FSBOs and expireds, as you mentioned, and I'm stoked to get into that. Yeah. You've been an agent for 2.5 years, so since August of 2020, and you have done 59 total transactions, so over 16 million in volume, which is awesome. Totally. And just this year in 2023, and we're not even halfway through the year, you've already closed 29 transactions. So you're on track to do, like 60, 70 transactions this year. So far, the current volume in 2023, again, we're in May 2023, you're over 8 million. And so you consider yourself like a team leader, and people on your team, like there's like about 10 of you with Caleb Drake out there in the Florida Panhandle. So that's right. You have been killing the cold call game, and I'm excited to go into the scripts because I love role playing on these.
Oh my God.
So that way people can actually like hear it, like what does an actual conversation sound like? So yeah. Okay. So in 1 minute, let's do your show moment.
Okay. My show moment, basically just really quick. This just happened a couple of days ago at a preview, another FSBO, where I walked through, and it was bizarre because like there was a couple laying in a bed completely stark naked.
What?
And just let me walk through. I'm not even like, I can't make this up. And there was a guy that was leading me through this house, and he poked his head and he's like, "Hey guys, do you mind covering up? We have a realtor here." They did not. And this play, like I had to walk through the bedroom, and I'm just like, oh my God, like
dude,
oh my God,
Pixar didn't happen. No, I'll be like, what the fuck is this?
I thought I was going to get murdered. It was a really dark house. It had to have been over 100 degrees in this room. Like, what were they even doing in there? It's like at 1:00 in the afternoon, and they're just laying in this really dark room in like 105 degree weather. And there's parts of the floor missing, by the way. There's like subflooring gone. It just goes into the crawl space. And he's just like, yeah, it's going to need some work. There's a hole over there. Watch your step over here. You're going to fall through the floor. And like, it was all just a very candid conversation. But I'm like, guys, just cover it up.
This is normal.
Yeah. And like that stuff isn't that uncommon. Like that happens quite a bit. And I get myself in those situations sometimes. And it was weird because he like brought me out to the sunroom and he's like, I got to close the door. And I'm just like, we don't have to close the door. Like I'm fine. Like we're good. Keep the door open.
Yeah. People are, and that's the thing, like being landlords too, and working a lot within real estate. It's like, you realize how crazy humans are. Like they're gross and weird. And I mean, I'm gross and weird too, but thank you for sharing that show moment. And we kind of got we got your storyline from that initial story, which is really cool. I'm super curious. So if you did 29 this year, and it sounded like that first year you didn't do a lot from like 2020 August to 2021 August. So how many did you do last year?
Last year, I think I did like about 15.
Okay, gotcha.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Between 15 and 20, somewhere in there.
You are absolutely crushing it this year then.
Thank you. Yeah. I really turned it. It changed last fall. Like after like I had that epiphany. Like honestly, guys, like I kind of feel like there was a higher power involved that kind of helped me out because it was a rough emotional time for me. We got this brand new newborn baby that's, in the other room, like crying. And sometimes like I would just be here, like staring at my phone or staring at my laptop. Like I need to do something here. Yeah. But I didn't quite have the pieces to like know exactly what to do. And that was a huge downfall.
Well, with that, so you talked about there's that huge change in the fall of last year. So like what were the specific activities that you put into your world that generated this huge amount of success already this year? What were the specific activities?
Yeah, time blocking was big for me. Like before last fall, like I was all over the map with prospecting. I was chasing the shiny penny. I would do a little bit here, a little bit there. I would hear that, oh, this over here works. Let me try that. Like, let me send a direct mail once. Anything worth doing is worth doing at least for 6 months at a time.
Totally agreed. 6 months is a really good. And so the thing you chose then was this cold calling, right?
Cold calling. Yeah, cold calling is the most efficient way of prospecting, whereas door knocking is the most effective way of prospecting. I like efficiency. So I decided to go all in with cold calling, got a Vulcan7 program. That's the platform that I use to cold call. And they hooked me up with like expireds and FSBOs. And I actually hired Brandon Mulrennan as a cold calling coach. And his system worked really, really well for me, to kind of start things out. And then I kind of tweaked things as I went to kind of figure out what worked for me. That was huge. One of the biggest things that I could actually recommend to a lot of new agents out there is actually have agent resume, like a real estate resume specific to like a snapshot of your business. That way, when you're talking to these prospects, instead of saying, hey, what's your email? I'd like to just send you some information. Like most people are going to be turned off to that. They're not going to want that. However, if you say, hey, what's a good email for you? I'd like to send you my resume. That way, if I come over with a buyer, you know who I am and how I run my business. They're a lot more open to that. They want to see my resume. They want to see what my business is about. And it kind of shows exactly how I run my business.
First, I wanted to ask what is in that resume, and then taking it back a little bit more for agents that like don't have a good resume to even fill out yet. Like they're trying to get to the next step. I want to go back into like what more specific activities that you did and why cold calling. That's a lot of questions. What's on the resume?
Yeah, what I can do is I can actually give you a copy of it in PowerPoint form, which is very easily.
Yeah, you're speaking our language.
Yeah,
and it'll be uploaded into theagentgoldmine.com for free for everyone.
I know.
Perfect.
Giving away all my secrets, but that's been huge for me. I mean, that resume kind of sells for me. Like I don't have to try to promote myself. It's just they read my resume. And they're instantly like, wow, like that's a good resume. And they, I get come list me calls all the time. Yeah. I have 3 listings going live this week, over about 1.5 million going live this week. So the resume absolutely works.
Dude.
And I use that as like a, just to kind of build rapport. That's been working for me. And it doesn't matter who I talk to. It doesn't matter if it's a circle dial. Doesn't matter if it's an expired. Doesn't matter if it's a FSBO. Whoever I'm talking to, like I throw my resume out like confetti. Like I just toss it out.
Okay, so you jumped right into Vulcan7. What is that?
Vulcan7 is a calling platform. It's similar to like RedX or Mojo. It's basically a cold calling platform that has like a triple dialer or a single dialer. I only use a single dialer when I'm calling loads of numbers. But I typically, my average day is I will typically call about 50, I'll make 15 dials. And I'll usually secure about 2 appointments a day.
That's huge. That is
What?
okay.
I know.
Wow.
Okay. So, but real quick, how much is Vulcan7?
Vulcan7, I believe I pay $305 a month. It's one of the more expensive ones. I actually started originally with RedX. I just feel like Vulcan7, I love the folder system, first of all. And they actually offer like training classes on cold calling like 2 or 3 times a week. And they're good. Like it's very, very interactive. Like they work with you. Like there's no extra cost for it. So they kind of show you the ropes with Vulcan7. And that's kind of how I got started. But I feel like their data is actually more accurate than some of the other platforms.
Okay, so you pay $305 a month for Vulcan7, and that includes the dialer and that includes training. And do you just go in and select you want FSBOs and expires, and then it pulls the data for you? And then you like, does it act as a CRM as well?
It can. Yeah, it does. It acts as a CRM if I want it to. You know, being with EXP, I typically use kvCORE. But yeah, I use that as like a specific cold calling CRM. Like that's where I keep all my nurture. That's where I keep all of my because I basically have a folder system where if they don't answer the first time, they go to call 2. Then the next day I'll call all of call 2. And then if they don't answer call 2, I move them to call 3, so on and so forth, all the way to 10. After the 10th call, they're not that serious about selling or, I move on. It's next after that. Once we get to about call 5 or 6, I start getting a little bit more aggressive. If they're not answering, like what I'll do is I'll text them first name ? That's it. And I just hold. And everyone takes the bait on that one. They're like, who is, like, do I know you? Like who, yeah, this is me. Because like I said, the information on Vulcan7 is very accurate. So the first names are usually always correct. So that's a way to get, people to respond to me. And I'm like, hey, I saw your house for sale. Is it still available? Then if it is, and I let everyone know, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Would you be open to an agent bringing you a qualified buyer? That is a qualifying question. I don't necessarily have a buyer. I'm just willing to ask them if they're willing to work with one to see if they're willing to go halfway there. And if they are, then I basically say, if they have any offers, I establish a timeline. And if I find out that, this is a house that they have to sell and they're not interested in renting it, they're not, whatever the case may be, it has to be a sellable home with a distinguishable timeline. Then I'll say, if, you try it for the next 30, 60 days, if for whatever reason the house doesn't sell, would you be open to other options, like listing it with another agent? And if they say yes, they're qualified. Then I try to set the appointment like, hey, I would love to kind of take a peek at this. If they're having an open house, I'd love to drop by. And while I'm there, I would like to go over my backup plan. I kind of just briefly talk about my backup plan, which is very much related to my resume. It's all connected, which is like a continuation of my resume. And they say yes or no. Sometimes they're willing to work with an agent. And if they're not, I'm like, hey, let's reevaluate. If you're not getting any offers in the next week, would you mind if I circle back around and we'll take another look at it? Then 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, sure. Give me a call back. But one of the things that separates me as a caller is like, I don't know where a lot of other agents get trained, but they are aggressive on the phone. And like, even like the new agents that I'm training, like I don't teach my agents to sell. I teach them how to serve. And that's the difference. Like, it's not always about buying and selling real estate. It's about just helping them accomplish their goal. I've done that so many different times where like their objective is to maybe sell the house and find something else. And I'll find out if they're staying in the area, then I'll do what I can to help them accomplish their goal, not mine. And that's the biggest difference maker. And a lot of people will, FSBOs get hit over the head by agents. They get called 20, 30, 40 times a day. And a lot of agents will be incredibly aggressive, and they'll be like, you need to hire me. I'm going to sell your house and I'm going to offer you X amount over your asking price. And they promise the world, and it's such a bad look. And I'll just go in there and I'll just be completely honest and candid with them and just have a regular conversation. And most of the time they're like, hey, you're different than most of these other agents. And that's my competitive advantage. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to help them accomplish their goal. If I have a buyer, then I'm going to definitely try to find or have my buyer take a look at this place and lock it up. If not, if I don't have the buyer, then I would like to try to sell it for you.
Questions.
A lot.
Okay. A lot of questions. Okay. So one of my questions is, so you say that you call people and you stop around the 10th attempt and you get more aggressive on 5 to 6. So if you stop at 10, is that like they're dead to you? You mark them as dead, you never come back, or are they moved to a different follow-up plan?
That's usually they're dead to me at that point after the 10th call. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just a call. Like I'll try to call them. I'll try to, if there's an email provided, I'll try to email them. I'll try to text them. Every once in a while, I'll even try to send like a direct mail. I'll send them a card, send them something. I just want a response. And they can tell me to piss off. At least they're responding to me. That's great. But that's the objective, is just get a response from them. So I know that they're alive.
And then once you have that response, once you say, Chris, ? Which I thought that was really interesting. I've never heard that before. I thought it was awesome. So then when they say yes, like who's this, then what's the next line?
Then I just go into the script. I'm like, hey, I just saw your house on the market at 123 Main Street. I was wondering if it's available. Then I start the conversation. Then they're like, yes, it is available. Then I tell them right then, like, hey, I'm an agent in whatever city. I always say the city that I'm in. That way it creates familiarity. That way they know that I'm not calling from some call center in Missouri, or wherever. Like I want them to know that I'm in the same town as they are. There's a good chance that maybe they held the door open for me at a coffee shop or something. Maybe we had a conversation at some point. But I'm not just some stranger across the country. I'm in the community right here with you. And I try to create that.
And at what point, because you mentioned before we hit record in the beginning that you straight up usually say, I'm cold calling you. Can you walk us through that one?
That is dynamite. That's one of my secret weapons. Once they say, like I'll call somebody. This is typically for like old expireds, especially, where it's incredibly effective. I did this actually yesterday, and I had some really, really good conversations. But basically what I do is I'll call them and I'll say, hey, is this so-and-so? Yes, it is. Hey, so-and-so, my name's Chris. I'm a local realtor in the area. Just to give you a heads up, this is kind of a cold call. So feel free to hang up if you want to. But otherwise, I'd love to ask you a quick question. Then I shut up and I wait. And 99 times out of 100, they're just like, yeah, shoot, what you got for me?
Wow.
Or go ahead. Now I've just leveled the playing field. They know that this is a cold call. They know I'm probably going to try to sell something here, and they are now open to it. And now they can't get mad at me because I gave them the option to get off the phone with me I gave them that opportunity. Then now we can have a regular, candid conversation. And I'm just like, hey, that property on 123 Main Street, whatever happened to that? Did that ever sell? Did you get an offer on that? Oh, well, no, we decided to hang on to it because the market conditions were right. Whatever the reason. Okay, great. If it's an old expired, everyone knows that the market has jumped since, like a year ago, so then I have the conversation like, hey, man, values are way up. I'm just not sure if you wanted to take advantage of the market. The values are still holding. They're still way above where they were during pre-pandemic conditions. So I'd love to, help you out. When's the last time you had a price valuation done on it? Then we just have that conversation. And then, of course, you're working with an agent. I'd love to send you some information, price valuation, CMA, whatever. And then, of course, I get I turn it into a circle dial, even if they're not willing to do business with me. No matter what, I always try to get an email because that just builds my database. And I kind of use a similar strategy to Ricky Carruth with like an email that goes out like every week, so I get their emails and I send them out. Then I add them to my database.
What do those emails say?
The email is it's basically an IDX page. It basically has all the links of like different markets around the area, different price points, how I sell houses, what I do. Then I basically have like an article about what's going on around town, a new restaurant that opened, a fishing pier that just opened, like some kind of a parade that's happening downtown, anything in the world that's just something happening around town. And a lot of people are open to that. I'm getting about a 40% open rate on those emails. And I try to keep them very similar every week. And the only thing I change is like the body, which is like that paragraph. Everything else is every week the same.
Yeah. So you seem like a very outgoing, extroverted guy. Were you always that way before starting cold calls, or did that change over time?
I'm actually a major introvert. Like I like being by myself and just kind of like doing my own thing. I do what I have to do, and whatever that takes. Like I'm all in on real estate, and I will do what it takes to succeed. And that's just where I'm at. That's just my mindset, my philosophy. If I need to be somebody else in order to be successful, then I will turn into that person. And I have found that success isn't just a quick maybe one or two elements. Like, it is an equation, and every one of those pieces have to be correct. Like, I eat healthy. Everyone should eat healthy, but the reason, like, one of the most important reasons I eat healthy is so I can feel good about who I am. I can feel good about, what I'm eating, and that comes across through my voice. Like, if I'm eating fast food every day, I'm sluggish, I'm lethargic, I'm on the phone, and I sound tired and boring, and I'm just not right in my head.
Yo, real quick, this podcast is not free. Cost of admission is sharing with a buddy who'd benefit or throwing it on your Instagram story. Tag us, we'll reshare that. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that you do 15 calls today and that produces 2 to 3 appointments. Part one question is, was it always that way? Or when you first started doing this cold call play back in the fall, how many calls did you have to take back then?
It's pretty much always been about between 15 and 20 dials a day. Yeah.
Okay, follow-on question is, of those 15 calls you do a day that convert to 2 to 3 appointments, are those follow-ups generally, or are those like the first time you call someone? Do you know?
That's initial contact. I usually set like a regular day, which is always Monday. That's my follow-up day. So I'll do my regular like 15, 20 calls. Then after that, like, I'll do my nurtures. Like, I'll do follow-up appointments, and I'll do any kind of nurture that I have to. Everyone knows that the money is in the follow-up, so and I suck at it. Like, I'm not that good. And I'm actually trying to work on that moving forward of getting much, much better at my follow-up game.
With the follow-up, that was another one of my questions, is you're taking all these calls, you're calling a bunch of people, like a ton, and are you taking actual notes yourself, like within your CRM, or is this something that's just like recorded that you refer back to? Like, how do you remember what you talked about previously and make sure that the conversation feels like a continuation as opposed to who are you again?
Yeah, great question. On Vulcan7, they actually have that. There's like a note field, and I can do a timestamp. So I just hit a button, it timestamps, so then I type in any notes. This person is selling because of, XYZ. Here's the timeline. Here's what they said. Here's how the conversation went. And these are my thoughts on, what I kind of picked up from like either body language or, something that I kind of felt in the conversation. I always kind of leave it a note like that. Then I'll kind of advise myself, like, follow up in 2 days. I'll kind of leave a note for myself like that. Then that goes into my nurture. So when I see it on the very next time, that following Monday, I call them, hey, did you get any offers over the weekend? Things like that. Something else I do that I forgot to add is that when I'm at the preview appointment, like, I'll do the tour of the home. I kind of go over my backup plan. Then when I get home, I send them a card in the mail, a handwritten thank you card. And in the thank you card, I put a lottery ticket. A scratch off lottery ticket. That's impact. And I basically say something, it's cheesy, but it works so well. And I basically say, like, hey, thank you so much for allowing me to preview your home. I hope I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with you in the future.
Oh my God, stop.
I love those.
Adorable.
Yeah. And I've picked up listings just because it's so different. Like, people would call me and they win like $10 or something. They'd call me and be like, dude, I actually won. That's incredible. And it just kind of keeps that relationship going. I'm like, dude, I'm so glad. I hope to have the opportunity to work with you. Then more often than not, they end up picking me. And I rarely ever compete against other agents. Like, a lot of times, like, a lot of people will shop agents and they'll go 3 or 4 deep. And I don't like to do that. Like, I just like to go in for the kill. So I like to go in, get the preview appointment. Then I'll basically, I try to position myself to be the obvious choice. And that way there's no competition. And I offer a flexible commission structure. And if I continue the seller, if it's a FSBO, they've already been marketing this property. I'm like, if you find the buyer, then I'll actually reduce my commission even more to like 3%. Then, I'll basically just be your transaction coordinator, making sure that we get the paperwork done and we can get it to the closing table. That actually, something crazy happened like 3 weeks ago where I presented this offer to somebody. It was a FSBO. And then he called me back like the next day and he's like, hey, I want to take you up on your Bring a Buyer program. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's just like, yeah, like, we're selling this for sale by owner. We talked about your commission structure. We have a buyer that's putting an offer on this. And now we want to bring you in to handle the transaction. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
What an awesome deal.
Wow. Winner.
Like, thought about like that, but okay.
Okay.
Property.
Dude, amazing. Love it. I have one more, maybe 2 more questions about this. Okay. So you mentioned before that you're using Vulcan, but you're also using kvCORE. Is that correct?
Yes.
So at what point do they transfer from Vulcan to kvCORE, and how do you transfer the conversations, the previous, if they're like all notes within Vulcan?
Yeah. So what I do, I typically will transfer them over once I have a warm and fuzzy. Basically, once it becomes a warm lead, like once I'm like, okay, they're on the fence, they are qualified, they are motivated, and I'm in the running for this. Like once I have that feeling, I move them over to kvCORE. I don't really set them up on a drip campaign or anything. I just kind of keep a very close eye on it through my cold calling system with Vulcan. Then I basically have all their information. They're set up in my database for the emails every week. So they're a part of my family.
Okay. It makes sense. I was thinking from like the perspective of like multiple platforms and continuity and managing, if that was a struggle at all, or if it's like, that's all, in my head.
It seems a little redundant. And in the very beginning, it was like that, but then I actually met an agent who's doing over $1 million in GCI, and he uses an Excel spreadsheet as a CRM. And that kind of like put things in perspective. Like it's not the end of the world.
That was me. It was me for years. Literally.
If it works for you, then great.
Exactly.
But I mean, for me, like I like kvCORE, and I basically bounce between kvCORE and Vulcan7. I don't like anything else other than that. And if I need to put them on a drip campaign, I have that there for kvCORE. That way, like it's an automated system. They're getting emails, they're getting text messages or whatever. And I have a few different like drip campaigns set up specifically for FSBOs and expireds and things like that. That way they don't fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
But I like the personal touch.
So you mentioned, I want to go over the costs and overhead of your business. So you have Vulcan7. You also mentioned having a cold calling coach. And before we started recording, you have 2 VAs. How much is everything? And, plus others that we haven't spoken about yet. How much are you paying every month for your business?
My overhead is actually ridiculously cheap. The coach is actually a one-time fee, and I have a lifetime membership. That was crazy. And he is worth every penny, by the way. Yeah. So my overhead is about $700 a month, I think. That's my fixed costs. Then of course, my assistants, which I have a transaction coordinator, and then basically like a full-time assistant. Okay, so here's what I do. And this is something else, another takeaway for new agents is I focus on my strengths and outsource my weaknesses.
$700 a month includes the Vulcan7, which is $305. Your cold calling coach was a one-time fee. How much was that?
That was $3,500. And
then the VAs, you're including in that $700 a month?
No, that's a fixed cost. Okay. My transaction coordinator is basically like, she's about $400 a month or $400 per transaction, which is awesome. Then I basically have an assistant that I'm paying like a percentage of the commission. But I basically have her doing my heavy lifting. Yeah. So most of the once it gets to under contract, like I don't really have to do much. Like they pretty much just take it the rest of the way.
And those two are both paid at close, so it's not overhead.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. So then overhead, we got the $305 a month for Vulcan, obviously $85 a month for EXP. What else?
Yeah, Constant Contact, Folio, which was a one-time fee. Like I think Folio was like $150 a year. I mean, a lot of these are like the one-time fee kind of things. But my fixed monthly overhead is between $700 and $800 a month, and that's all in. Then the only variable costs are my 2 assistants.
What's Constant Contact?
Constant Contact is my emailer. That's my blast where I can basically send out like a template of a huge email blast to everybody. And I know I could probably do the same thing in kvCORE, but I'm already comfortable with Constant Contact. And it has like a heat map. I can tell exactly like where everyone's clicking. I can track everything. I know exactly who's opening it, what they're clicking on. Like I'm able to track everything. And that's huge for me. And it's a very easy, like drag and drop kind of system. I can knock out an email in about 15 minutes for the week and I'm done. So I like that process. But pretty much everything total, my monthly cost with MLS fees and everything is about $800 a month total.
Nice. Okay.
And that's with my website as well. Which I just actually I'm changing.
A website separate from EXP's website?
Yeah, I'm getting a custom website. I want a website that's like a mothership of lead gen. That's going to be like moving into my next strategy, which is going to be, I don't like the IDX system of EXP. I just want something a little bit more closer to home that's branded more for my style. That's going to be a little bit more user friendly for everybody. It's a really cool domain. I got chriscloses.com. I cannot believe it was even available.
Yeah. I can't believe that's available either. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's awesome. So that's actually in the process of being designed right now. But that is factored in as part of that $800 a month. There's like $150 maintenance fee for website.
Okay.
And that's
Okay,
pretty much
cool.
all I use. But I'm all in on cold calling.
Yeah. Now I want to go into like the VAs and leverage. So I cut you off when you said you were giving advice to newer agents. Do you remember what that was? And do you want to take it from there?
Yeah. Focusing on your strengths and then outsourcing your weaknesses. That's something that, I mean, most real estate books will actually show you that, like in chapter 1. And that's something that I really, really focus on because like as most people know, real estate can be very stressful. I mean, you're constantly putting out fires, and a lot of these transactions turn into time sucks. I don't have time to do that if I'm trying to scale. And my strengths are prospecting and selling and marketing, and I absolutely love it. So that's really what I focus on doing. Then the rest of it, I basically outsource. So I have my VAs that basically take care of the back end stuff that frees me up to just keep prospecting. So and this is all kind of very new within the last like few weeks. So like the 10 to 20 calls that I'm making every day is probably now going to jump to 40 to 50 at least. And that's just for like one lead source. Then I'm going to start sprinkling in other lead sources, and I'm going to start a YouTube channel. But the point is like that way I'm able to focus on what I do best. Then I allow my assistants to do what they do best because frankly, they're better at it than I am. They're able to put out fires, they're able to, talk to clients, they're able to, handle things on a much better level for, to streamline our communication and our processes. And that's really the core nucleus of my team are my assistants, because like a lot of people would try to scale their business very quickly and then try to get their internal core. I actually did it the opposite way because I really feel like that's going to speed things up in the long run because I have such a good processing and systems that everything is streamlined and that I'm providing the best customer service available while still being freed up to be able to do what I do best.
So when is the first time that you bring someone else into the mix? You're the one, cold calling on your own, you go to the preview on your own, or do you what's the first point that you add something and what is that thing?
I usually add when we get the listing. As soon as we get the listing, I basically have my VAs do all the research. I want them to find out everything that they possibly can about the property, what the flood zone is, what the permits have been pulled, any historical information that I can possibly get for that property. They're going to be doing all of that. And then basically what I do is I work the terms, conditions, and price with the sellers. And then we basically put it into the MLS. Then they handle pretty much everything from there for showing coordination. Then I'm the one that basically does the negotiations, the contracts, making sure then as soon as it goes under contract, I pass it off to them and then they take it home. But it's really cool because it's all about communication because I have a thread. So I'm still involved in everything. I see everything. So basically like what happens is that I have a thread with like a text thread with my assistants, both of them, and the sellers on one text thread, like an SMS thread. Then I have a WhatsApp thread with just me and my assistants labeled that property address for the behind the scenes stuff. So if I need to talk to them about, hey, we need this, and this done, that's on WhatsApp. But if it's a direct conversation to the client, that's on the regular text message. And that way we don't kind of confuse, like we're thinking we're on one thread and it's actually the other. That's happened to me before.
Yeah. And are these VAs local or are they in another country? And did you have to train them?
Oh, they're both local.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they're right here in the town, and I've never actually met one of them in person. And I've been working with her for like a year, and she lives like 45 minutes away, but I've never needed to.
So you mentioned a transaction coordinator and an assistant. I'm curious as to, because it sounds like neither of them get involved until there is an actual property, right? Hypothetically. I think that the role of the transaction coordinator is relatively clear across, the industry, but that other piece, like what is that other assistant doing in the contract to close process, the outside of the TC work?
Everything. She's basically a personal assistant. So whatever I need, she's able to do for me. If I need her to get on and do specific tasks, then she's there for me. She's the point of contact for all the clients. That way my phone's not blowing up at 6 a.m. like it used to be. If she gets those text messages, then she relays them to me at a later time. So she's basically there to manage the transaction. The transaction coordinator, it kind of like does some of the lifting. but it's actually my personal assistant that does 80% of it.
That's interesting. Do you have those lanes like clearly defined? Like, are they written out, or is it just you've developed this over time through iterations?
In the very beginning, I started just kind of over time, but then I started like writing everything down, like different tasks, different, like from start to finish, this is what we need to do. And it's constantly like tweaking. You know, every day I'm calling her, having a different conversation, like, hey, you know, this is what happened. We need to do this better. We need, you know, just little tweaks constantly. But the responsibilities are constantly growing. And it works out perfectly because she's actually in the process of becoming a licensed agent, but she just wants to stay, you know, working with me because her husband's military. So they're going to be PCSing all over the place. And she doesn't want to start over with every new market she goes to. So she's in a really good spot. I mean, she can be doing the same exact thing from Hawaii. It doesn't really matter. So she's remote, but she basically just does any cleanup. She puts out any fires and then takes on all the headaches that happen with that.
Nice. I'd like to start digging more into the golden nugget. So your golden nugget is actually, well, there are two now for this show.
There's two. The resume
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, the
more.
resume.
Yeah.
But wait, there's one more. And we're going to talk about we're going to talk about Folio. So can you walk us through what Folio is, how you implement it, and what the audience is going to be seeing from what you're going to be uploading?
Yeah, so Folio, it creates a timeline. There is a free service that allows it. I have the paid service. I think it's like $150 to $200 a year. It's not that much, but it's really, really cool. It's basically a customizable timeline that you can create different templates for different situations. And all you have to do is like put in the date of listing, the date it goes under contract, and then the date of closing, and then everything else is pretty much automated. Like you can set it for, in Florida, like our due diligence period is 15 days. So you can automatically set that for like the inspection period. Then you can have like a finance contingency period. And all these are little deadlines. So you can set the timeline. But then at the very top, there's a countdown. So it'll say like 30 days, 12 hours, and 14 minutes until closing. And it basically like it counts down the whole time. Then it also allows me to create different tasks for my VAs. And it basically allows me to manage my assistants without micromanaging them, because I can create like, here's the things to do. Then when they go in, they flip it, the status from like to do to in the process to complete it. You know, so I know exactly what's being done. You know, if we need to extend the closing date, you know, that's going to be updated in Folio. So the timelines change. This also gets sent out to the buyers and the sellers. So everyone can kind of be on the same page. In addition to that, you have a spot where you can put all the resources. You can put all the utility companies. You can put like, here's an electrician if you need an electrician. Whatever you want, you can put all their information in. That way it's like another level of service for your clients to have and be like, oh, that's really cool. Like everyone's on the same page. It tells you exactly like what countdowns you have for every specific thing. It has all the contact information for all the people that are involved. It just keeps everybody on the same page. Like I send an invite to the lender, the title company, and there's roles and responsibilities. Like you can assign people roles. So that way everyone can kind of see like what's happening. And then you can send documents to each other. It also automatically creates like a folder in your Gmail, in your mailbox. So it connects to Gmail. You know, so it basically has all the files and like PDFs, any extensions are basically pulled from your email and all like collected on a list on the Folio attachments. It's crazy how it's all automatic.
You are a self-proclaimed marketing and sales guy, right? So normally there's like two types of agents out there. There's those that excel at marketing and sales, and those are then there's the ones that excel at the back end, like the operations, right? Well, listening to you talk about Folio, it sounds like you have a really good, feel for creating systems. How long did this take you to build out? Did you do it on your own, or did you hire one of those virtual assistants to come in and you told them what to do and then they implemented it?
For Folio?
Yeah.
Folio is actually like, I kind of stumbled upon it with another agent. I was working a deal with her and I was like, what is this? And I just kind of like, I looked into it and I was like, this is brilliant. I love that. I'm going to start doing that. So that was just kind of something that we stumbled upon, collaborating with other agents.
Okay, but you built it out?
It's a paid system. So you can create templates. So you can create as many templates as you want to for like different deals, whether you're the buyer or the seller. But I basically created like 5 different templates. So now I can create a folio timeline in about 2 minutes. The old system that we did was we called it a player's email. And what that was we basically emailed like the executed contracts and all the addenda to like all the players that were involved, the title company, the lender, the buyer's agent, whoever. So this basically took the place of that, and it's much, much faster and streamlined. I mean, time is our most valuable resource. So now instead of spending an hour making this email like by hand about this is the property address, this is the sales price, here are the contingencies, here are the seller's concessions, here's everything that's involved. It's just so much easier to just plug and play. And then the timeline's created in 2 minutes, and then you're done. It just frees up so much of our time. Then it's interactive, so I can kind of keep track of to make sure my assistants are getting everything done, and everything is streamlined.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so to be clear, what you are uploading into the Goldmine is a screenshot of how you do either a buyer or I guess seller transaction.
Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to upload like a screenshot of what it looks like to the client, to the agents, like basically to everyone, so you can kind of see of like how it works. To kind of give everyone like a feel, like, will this help me or not? So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing. And the other thing is going to be the big thing is going to be the agent resume. I think that's huge. And I think you're at a huge disadvantage if you don't have one, if you're not using one.
Next question. This is kind of a mix between what does the future hold, but more specifically, you mentioned that you are going to implement more lead generation sources, more marketing into your plan in the future. So what does that look like? What are you planning to implement into the marketing piece of your business?
Yeah, so my website design is going to be a big part of it, and it's going to be another strategy of I'm actually going to be hooking up a YouTube channel as well. And I think the YouTube channel is going to be really, really effective as in terms of, because where we are is a big tourist area. We have Destin, 30A, Pensacola Beach, Pensacola. We have a lot of areas where, it's nationally known. So, and we also have a lot of military bases in the area. So I'm going to create like a lot of YouTube videos to basically reach out to those people that are looking to move into this area, to kind of give them different resources and such. And all that's going to be tied to my website with landing pages.
You have to check out the most recent recording of an episode that Ali and I did on the Be More Show for Agents. It's Sam Cottle is doing YouTube. That's 100% his marketing focus. And his channel is called Living in Tampa. And you could probably just completely rip it off. What did Ali say? R&D? Rip off and duplicate. And just do that for the Pensacola market. You should for sure hit him up regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm all about that. I will reach out to him for sure. But that's exactly the direction I'm going to be going as well. Like I want to be able to scale like more on a national level and just be turning and burning. I used to pay for leads, and that's another thing I want to just briefly talk about. When I joined my other team, I was so dependent on either his lead flow, which I had to give half of it back to him, or this paid lead system through like Realtor.com or Zillow or whatever. And a lot of people have mixed feelings on this. And it's some people do really well on it. I didn't. I think I closed like 1 or 2 transactions. I basically broke even. But it's just so much easier to prospect on your own. Like there is an infinite number of leads out there and an infinite number of opportunities. I feel like it's a complete waste of money, in my opinion, to like have these paid services. And it was crazy because like I would get a lead and it was like a circus because like it was sent out to like 10 different agents. So like it was like speed to lead. We had to call immediately, even if I was making calls at 11 p.m. at times, just because like if I don't call, somebody else will, and I might lose it. And it's like, talk about a cold call at 11 p.m. and you're trying to sell a house,
and you have a new baby.
Difficult. Yeah, with a new baby, it's just difficult. I just prefer to find my own leads and prefer to work with the people that I want to work with.
This short pause is to tell you that this podcast ain't free. Y'all, tap on the 5 stars and leave a review with your Instagram handle. If you're funny, we might give you a shout out on the next episode. Thank you so much. Back to the show. Yeah, that's the mindset. A lot of agents starting out are always, they'll be like, well, do you provide leads like when they're interviewing firms and stuff? And I'm like, that's not the question that, you should be asking. It's like, do you train on how to generate your own business that's something sustainable, that you have control of not only who you're working with, but also the longevity, the success well into the future of feeding yourself and your family and hitting your goals? So I love that you just said that. It's awesome.
Exactly. And what drives me crazy is that I see so many online debates about what brokerage is the best. Oh, this have the 100% commission splits and all these fees over here. Who gives a It doesn't matter. None of that matters if you can't sell a house. So what you should be looking for is surrounding yourself with the people that are going to elevate you, that are going to help you succeed. You want, like, if you want to get into investments, find a team that specializes in investments. If you want to go into like new builds or retail, find those people. But it's like anything else. You want to be able to find your people, whether it be agents, whether it be prospects, whether it be deals. I mean, you want to find out exactly like what works for you. I've hung up on people when I cold call them before. Like, it's a two-way street. Like, I'm not going to be the only one that gets hung up on. Like, if people give me attitude, I'm like, next, move on, click.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I'll hang up on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
funny is whenever I get cold called, not by realtors, but just like, car warranties, and they hang up on me because I give them attitude, I call them the back. I'm like, no, you don't. Talk? Let's talk. My New Yorker totally comes out. God. And then they end up blocking me, and I'm like, mission, completed.
Accomplished.
They blocked
me. Exactly.
Yeah. But just think like some high-powered agents that actually did the math on it, and they figured out like every time you get hung up on, you basically save money, and you're basically saving an average about $50 every time you get hung up on. So like my mindset has now changed. So like when I get cold called, as a courtesy, I will hang up on them. As a courtesy, because like I'm actually like appreciative. If somebody hangs up on me, I'm like, oh, great, thanks for not wasting my time. Yeah. That just saved me like 10 minutes and a headache. That's great.
I find it really similar to buying properties as well. Like if you go under contract and you realize that it was a deal and you walk away, yes, you lose your, earnest money or whatever it is, inspection money, but you saved yourself so much more money at the end. And that's what I try to tell buyers too. Like, hey, no, you can cancel at any time. This like the $1,000 you put into inspections and earnest money and whatever, driving, commuting, and your time is not worth the $374,000 purchase price. So yeah, dude, definitely. Do you have, before we wrap up, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
Honestly, the biggest thing, especially for the new agents, is I'm just going to reiterate kind of what I just said is just finding your people. That's, I cannot just, explain that enough. Just making sure that you're with the right people that you want to do business with, making sure that you're with the right agents, that you're, the commission splits do not matter in the beginning. Like 100% of zero is still zero. Like you have to learn how to sell a house first. You have to be able to be with the people that are going to show you how to succeed. So instead of looking at, the fees and the commission splits and like the benefits of the brokerage, look at like what, the training systems that they have and the people that are, a part of it. That's the biggest thing. The other thing is like consistency, habits, reading books about like atomic habits, habitual habits, the 7, habits of a millionaire. There's 1,000 books out there that talk about habits. There's obviously something to that. So creating like daily routines is massive. Like a morning routine is just phenomenal.
Love. Okay, gotcha. That totally makes sense. Like find your right people and then also work on yourself. Work on making yourself the best you could possibly be before you start judging and criticizing the rest of the world. That's also like a shout out to Jordan Peterson. But okay, it is time to wrap it up. In our first wrap up question, what is your favorite app or tool?
My favorite app or tool is probably Folio right now. Between that and Vulcan7, because Vulcan7's made me a lot of money.
What events are you going to this year, if any?
Great question. I'm going to be going to EXPCon in Vegas. I'm going to be iconing for sure. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I want to do more mastermind stuff. We're going to be going to mastermind group in San Antonio, Texas next March as well. We're going to be doing that. So I want to do like something at least 2 to 3 times a year. Like I want to do some mastermind stuff. I think that's huge. Just going to like, being able to network with people, finding out different trends, finding out different secrets of what other people are doing. I mean, that's huge to me. And just the boost of like it pumps you up. You want to get that call 1,000 people.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like all of the normal things that you expect, plus like that insane high, that energy that just carries you. And you're like, I'm ready to take over the world.
Yeah. You feel so good. It's like, what have I been doing the last couple of years?
Exactly.
Like,
totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, adrenaline.
Where or how can people, us or listeners, help you in your business?
Good question. You can follow me on social media for sure.
Hit it. What's your handle?
Yep.
Christopher.schultz.official. Yeah, there's a couple of us out there. But yeah, Christopher.schultz.official, SCHULTZ. Very important. That's the biggest way. If anyone has any questions or want to reach out to me about something, I'm happy to talk to anybody that'll listen to me.
Go give them a follow. And if you haven't already given us a follow, we're Allie the Agent on Instagram and The Shelby Show on Instagram. So that's it for today. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. This was all such good information, tactical information, which I love. So we appreciate it.
I thank you so much for having me. It's been so awesome. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. You know what to do?
Be a bro and share the show. Thanks for listening, dude. If you want the golden nugget that this guest provided, see the show notes or just go straight to theagentgoldmine.com. That's where we keep the resources for you. Till next time.